Yeah, you do. You do some stretching. Come on, Ranger Jones.
I know,
Yes.
right? I know. I got to get this old body back like it used to be.
Hey, I'm like an old Chevy. It take me a long time to warm up. Once I'm good.
Man, I'm about a 2008 Bentley. Meanwhile, hey, I might be old, but when you see me, I'm still in the game.
All right.
I'm still out of your reach.
Yeah. All right. What's up, everybody? Welcome to Swaggy Vets Podcast. I'm your host, Big Pen. I got my co-host with me, my best friend, first Swaggy Veteran. What's up, baby?
What's going on, Big Pen? How y'all doing, all the Swaggy Vets and all their family?
Swaggy Vet Nation. All right, we at the Life After Boots podcast, and we're trying to bring some good information for veterans. But hey, yesterday, Happy Memorial Day was yesterday, and we had the Swaggy Vet launch, and we appreciate everybody that purchased some merchandise. We can't thank you enough. They got some hats. They got them shirts. Show them the shirt. Show them the shirt. Oh yeah,
that weight material in there. You see it?
Yeah. We had some people. We got the tumblers. Let me show you the tumblers. Hold on, real quick.
Dun, 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 dun.
Dun, 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 dun. Look at that thing.
I see you shining over there, boy. You're shining.
Hey, it's shining like wet paint.
You see it, boy? I call you son because you shine like one.
Hey, we appreciate all the love everybody shows, man. Y'all went out and showed a lot of love, and we appreciate y'all. And but guess what, man? We got a special guest today.
Special guest.
We got an amazing guest. Amazing leader. Amazing contributor to the U.S. Army. And he's come full circle. He's a logistician. Started off at Fort Leonard Wood, and now he's over Fort Leonard Wood, over the transportation battalion. What he do? Sorry,
like a boss.
Like a boss. We bring to the stage Command Sergeant Major Michael Rodriguez. What's up, baby?
Hey, how you guys doing?
You over there training the new 88 Mike?
Yeah, that's what we're trying to do.
Man, I remember. I wouldn't say like it was yesterday because it's been a long time since I've been there. But when I did, I tell you that weather was bipolar. I think we was talking about that earlier.
It sure is. It sure is bipolar over here every day.
You don't know what to wear outside. You bring your raincoat. You might need your cold weather coat.
Oh yeah,
it's crazy.
Okay, Leonard Wood.
How was your Memorial Day? How was your Memorial Day, Sergeant Major?
Oh, it was good. It was good. Just spent some time reflecting. Was able to attend a baby shower this past weekend for my best friend. He passed away, Santo Carreras. You guys remember Carreras? I don't think you guys remember Carreras. Just spent his daughter's baby shower over there in South Carolina. I was over there spending some time with the family down there. Then came back Sunday night and just came home back to Fort Leonard Wood to reflect and give tribute to our fallen veterans.
Absolutely, and don't get it twisted, everybody, because I've got some thank you for your service and stuff, and we appreciate it. But Memorial Day is all about the individuals who made the ultimate sacrifice to defend our freedom. So we want to make sure we highlight that. And and that's what we want to do on Memorial Day. So what inspired you to join the Army, Sergeant Major? All the way back in 98.
98, 25 years ago, almost 26.
Mm-hmm.
So my story is kind of a little different. So my family, I joined in Puerto Rico.
Oh wow!
So my family, my father, he used to run a funeral business, and I was part of the how can I say my my summer vacation and stuff, I used to go to his funeral parlor and help out and whatnot, the summer jobs, right? And so when I graduated high school, I was able to join a prestigious funeral home that had a union. And tell you the truth, I was making that time in 94, 95, I was making about $3,000 a month. So as an 18-year-old, 19-year-old making $3,000 a month, I was living kind of large, right? That was $36,000 a year at that time frame, right? So I worked in that funeral business for 5 years, and then because of a union and they had to do cuts, it's by seniority, it's not by position, it's by seniority. So I was part of that cut, and then I always had my father's a Vietnam vet. He has a 2 Purple Heart recipient, and he lost his leg at the age of 19. So I always saw my father and all his awards, certificates, and stuff like that. So I kind of had like a passion of joining, but I never pulled the trigger. Right? I never pulled the trigger. I was well off at that time. So now that I saw myself in the corner, like, okay, what I'm gonna do now? I decided to go and see a recruiter. Initially, I went to the Marines, right? But the Marines said, hey, come next week and we'll have a conversation, so on and so forth. And I thought, okay, whatever. Then I went to visit my dad and my sister. My sister just finished college, and I was telling her that, hey, I was planning to join the Marines. And she was like, hey, that's crazy because I'm going to join the Army. And I said, what are you talking about? I go, yeah, I'm gonna join the Army. I already talked to a recruiter. I already took the test and whatnot, and I'm gonna go become a nurse. So why wouldn't you just call my recruiter? Here's his number, whatever. So I called him, and he got me that same day, right? I went to his office recruiting station that same day, and took that little pre-test that they do, and then from there, I signed up and I said, hey, can you leave next week? And I was like, sure, hey, I can leave whenever you tell me to. Because of an event of job closing, the Army opened another, one chapter of my life closed, and the Army was another chapter of my life that I started. And, from there on, I'm here I am now, 25 years after.
Man, 25 years after. Now, how was it initially going to basic training and you went to AIT, and now the AIT that you went to, you're back running the AIT? How big of a difference is that going back there?
Well, the Army changes every decade, right? Every few years, the Army changes, right? So, and every generation is going to tell you the Army is different than it was before, right? So on and so forth. Well, as English being my second language, Spanish my first, it was challenging in the beginning. I was just mimicking what everybody else was doing, right? One thing I learned from my father, he said, if the Army tells you to run 1 mile, you go run 2 miles, right? Always do something more than the minimum. And it was cold. I came in October time for September. It was kind of hot in September, but then, like you said, Fort Leonard Wood has had some crazy weather, right? Mm-hmm. So doing basic training in AIT during the winter months was challenging by itself. Me coming from Puerto Rico, from the island, I was like, man, this cold is hurting me. But no, I had some good drill sergeants, and it was a great experience. Since I had that experience of working, I joined at the age of 23. So I wasn't not like an 18-year-old straight out of high school. And I knew this was a new chapter in my life. So took things kind of more seriously and just focus on what had to be done at that time. Just follow the leader, right? End of the day.
So at 23, you had a little bit more life experiences going into the whole Army experience. Because I know I was 18 when I went. I didn't know anything. That's good. You had a little bit of life experiences before you went to the Army.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So, Rob, so I know you. So, your experiences as a platoon sergeant, and I know you was a truck master, right?
Yeah.
How did that shape you in your approach to leadership within the Army?
Well, to tell you the truth, when I joined the Delta Company, right, when I was assigned to the Delta Company, my first action Delta Company was Gozi. He was a Staff Sergeant Gozi, Gerald Gozi. Remember him? He was like the second squad leader, first platoon, or something like that. Third squad leader. Yeah. So just learning, just being able to learn from the great leadership that Delta Company had, because Delta Company had phenomenal leaders all across the board, from from the specialist promotable on to the first sergeant, right? Being a platoon sergeant, first sergeant Small, command sergeant major Smalls retired, right? He gave me the opportunity. He put me as a baby truck. Remember, we had that baby truck in the truck master office to learn the processes of the motor pool, the day-to-day, the admin portion. Then he gave me the opportunity. He was the one with Captain Wolford. Gave me the opportunity to be a platoon sergeant. And it's a learning experience. Every position you do, you're learning on an OJT, right? Is a OJT, and but since I already been there for a few years, I already knew how the company ran, and that leadership of learning is I always, they're saying don't be the smartest person in the room, right? But I always wanted to be surrounded with folks that cared, and I had a great team. I took second platoon. First time, I always was first platoon. And be able to take second platoon, it was something new for when talking about those 1088 trailers and the mission and so on and so forth. I got to learn teamwork, learning the that everybody has a contribution to contribute into whatever mission we're doing, whatever task we have, and every leader had a voice, right? And since I was learning, everyone's learning how to be better in executing a task or a mission. I think that helped me shape for my next. I was a platoon sergeant numerous times, but every time I go to a different organization, I always revert back to Delta Company. My experiences with Delta Company, bring it to the other organizations, and I always was successful. And if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it does. And then also you also was a first sergeant as well. And
yes, I was a first sergeant. So I became a first sergeant when I was around my 18th year in the military, give or take.
Which unit was that?
That was the 689 RPO, Rapid Port Opening Element. It's an organization that is under SCDC, Surface Deployment Distribution Command. Didn't know nothing about it, right?
Yeah.
I didn't know nothing about it. I didn't know they existed, right? Always said, so just to rewind back, my foundation was for liberty, also known as Fort Bragg, right? That was my foundation of leadership, right? Being surrounded with a lot of type A personalities, go-getters, hungry, great leadership. And it was shoot, move, communicate, medicate. That's all we knew, right? 82nd patch, you wear the 82nd patch, and then they didn't care what was your MOS, right? We had a mission to do. You jump out of the aircraft, 03, 4 o'clock in the morning. Everybody has a mission, and there was one standard across the board, right?
100%.
So being in an organization that we did support, but also we trained a lot in operational, tactical survivability and supporting the warfighter, the infantry, our infantry folks. Going to an organization, the SCDC organization that is more strategic organization. With a small element, I was the first time for 689 RPO that was like 88 Novembers, a little bit of 88 mics, 88 hotel that I never worked along with. And then looking at they're a strategic organization under SCDC and US Transcom what they do, their main mission is port operations, port opening. So they get tasked with a humanitarian mission or a combat mission. Their job is to open the port, set the port up for preparation to receive cargo for incoming units, and then distribute it through downward forward element. So it was more strategic, it was more technical on the technical side. In November, tracking equipment, and then distribution. So when I got there as a first sergeant, now I'm coming from a tactical side, right? I'm coming from Fort Liberty. What we do is run over there, right? We run. We go to ranges. We run, and it's all about combat survivability mentality. And I'm coming to this small detachment unit, and they're looking at me crazy when I say, hey, we're gonna go run 5 miles. And we're gonna go run 5 miles, and we're gonna do it in 40 minutes or less. That's the standard, right? They're looking at me like, where did this guy come from, right? I thought, hey, this is the standard. But it was some adjusting, right? It was adjusting. I had to adjust to them. They adjusted to me, right? Me learning the mission. Now I said, okay, where do they have to be good at? They have to be good at their metal tasks, and they're not going to be in the front lines. They're going to be at if the balloon goes up, they'll be at a port, opening a port, either either A pod or S pod. They're not going to be in the front line. So hey, let me pull off a little bit on the tactical side and go on the more technical side, because that's what our warfighter needs is a technical guy or girl soldier that can bring the beans and bullets to the warfighter and give them that combat capability to defeat the enemy. So I had to change my training aspect and focus on PT we do every day, right? We'll go to a range every 6 months or every 4 months to qualify. We do our basic warrior tasks and battle drills, but however, I focus a lot more on the technical expertise, because when balloon goes up, our warfighter needs those beans and bullets, and they need that combat capability to execute their task. So it was a learning experience for me. It was a learning experience for them. But overall, we made it happen. I had great platoon sergeants. They knew my vision. They knew my intent. So like I said before, every organization I go to, every position I go to, I'm learning, because we're in a learning environment. We have to learn. We don't learn, we stop growing. So my leadership style changes based on the environment.
Yeah, absolutely. When I left Bragg and even when I went to Italy with the 173rd, the stuff I was doing, like, hey, we don't really do that here. Even though there was a high up tempo, but they're just like, what is this guy? Who is this guy? Trying to bring the 82nd Standard over to another unit. They're like, wait, come on now. They thought I was a little over the top. I'm like, no, this is just how it is. We're paratroopers. This is what we do. But sometimes it doesn't translate as well as you think it is. So, like you said, you kind of got to tailor your leadership, kind of conform to the environment that you're in. So I definitely
my first PCS. Sorry to interrupt you, but my first PCS out of Fort Liberty was Fort Richardson, Alaska, to Airborne Unit 425 at that time. Now it's the 11th Airborne Division, I think it is, out of Anchorage, Alaska. But the first time was to establish a new airborne brigade, and out of a 90-man platoon I had at that time, 60 were non-airborne qualified. So I had 40 airborne qualified and 60 non-airborne qualified folks. That was my first time ever working with somebody that was in the airborne community. Again, learning, right? So I had some senior NCOs. I had some NCOs that were were heavy units, HET units, 915 units and whatnot, and they did things a lot different, right? So so I grew, right? Because I was like, oh, I know, you know, the brag mentality. If you weren't airborne, you didn't meet my standards. You weren't at my level, right? But end of the day, one of the best soldiers that I had were those non-airborne personnel that brought a huge perspective on leadership, a huge perspective on the mission and different mindset of how to do things. So we just can't be closed-minded, you know, narrow-minded and say my way is the best way and that's it, right? There's different ways to see the cat. It's being open-minded and being receptive to new ideas and new ways of doing things.
Mm-hmm. Well, I realized that even though once I left Italy and went to the 1st Armored Division where it wasn't an airborne unit, what these guys really lacked in discipline. Now, I wouldn't say they lacked in discipline, but they were a little bit laxed what I was used to. But what they lacked in that, they made up with their work ethic. Those guys work really hard. I went to a HET unit. Matter of fact, if you remember Sergeant Cook, he was the first sergeant there. He had just left right before I got there. So it was really good. It was a HET unit. So the creme de la creme, as they say in the transportation world. But it was a good experience for me to get there. But these guys, they worked really hard. So I was impressed with their work ethic. So I understand all that you're saying. So as an AIT show, you were a platoon sergeant at the AIT?
Yeah, so the army, I believe in 2007 or 2008, they took drill sergeants out of AIT. Mm-hmm. And they had a new program that they were going to put sergeant first classes as AIT platoon sergeants. So that was kind of crazy because when I was in Afghanistan, and when I received the ATARS notification that I was going to go to Fort Jackson to learn to be a AIT platoon sergeant. And I didn't understand what they were trying to tell me. I was like, man, I've been a platoon sergeant for a while now. Why do I have to go to school to learn how to be a platoon sergeant? You know, what is this? So that's when I realized that the Army had changed the program, and then I was heading to Fort Leonard Wood to be a AIT platoon sergeant. So again, you know, from being a platoon sergeant of 90 personnel, sometimes 60, 64 personnel, to being a platoon sergeant / squad leader / team leader, a class of 120, new AIT soldiers. And it was me and a staff sergeant Mans at that time, 2 individuals doing at a level at squad leader level, E5 level, right? So I was like, well, the Army wants me to do this, so I'm going to be the best AIT platoon sergeant I can be, right? If this is what they want me to do, and this is what I'm going to do. It was kind of crazy because my company was composed of 8 sergeant first classes. That's it. And, you know, you supply your orderly room folks, but overall, we only had like 8 AIT platoon sergeants and doing CQ like 4 or 5 times a month, right? 24-hour duty, 4 or 5 times a month. So it brought me back down, right? It brought me back down to the trenches. Like, okay, this is what it is, right? But it was one of the greatest moments, right? It was one of the greatest moments. I use physical fitness as a motivational tool. We used to do competitions with other classes and other companies. We used to compete against their phase-on banner, right? We used to do like track and field events, how many push-ups, how many pull-ups we can do, so on and so forth. So I use that as a motivating tool for the AIT students to show the importance of being a soldier athlete, of being a physically fit soldier individual, and competition is good, and seeing them that they could, you know, through hard work and be able to win, the achievement, the gratification of winning, and the prize, right, of that their efforts paid off as a team, as a whole class. And then I I had a stubborn soldier that he was going to airborne school.
Yeah.
So one of the pet peeves for my class, I said, hey, no one here is walking to the DFAC, right, or walking from the DFAC, or when you're around the AO, you'll always be doing an airborne shuffle. You'll be doing an airborne shuffle to the DFAC. You'll be doing an airborne shuffle back. The DFAC was pretty, it was like a half a mile from the company area. It was a straight shot. But I always had my class doing the airborne shuffle. So the stubborn soldier I had, he wasn't a really good runner, right? He wasn't in the best fit. But I always did remedial PT. I always went to work at 05 in the morning. We started our PT, and I always left work around 20, 30, 2100 because I always had remedial PT with my APFT failures at that time. So make a long story short, I was back in Fort Liberty, and I was grading a PT test, and we're doing the 2 mile. We're at the 2 mile mark for the run, and there was a company doing a road march, and it was passing me by, and this stubborn individual, he saw me. He did an about face, ran towards me, and shook my hand and thanked me for the leadership that I gave him and making him successful where he's at right now at that time at the 82nd Airborne Division. He was killing it, you know. He was killing it, but I surprised me because, like, man, this guy was always mugging me, you know, mugging me, always, you know, and whatnot, right? Why I have to do this and so on and so forth. But then he understood after he went to airborne school. He understood once he was in 82nd, the op tempo, that now he was in better shape, better disciplined, and he knew where it came from, and it came from AIT during that time with me. So that was great. That was very rewarding for me. I will never forget it. As long as I could be successful with one person, I think I'm successful overall. You know,
that's amazing. That's amazing. You led from the front, so and you don't realize
every time, man.
Yeah, he didn't realize it at the time. He didn't realize it at the time, but because you never do when you're going through something, you're like, man, this sucks. Why am I doing this? But now, once it came full circle, he's like, yeah, I'm glad I went through that because I'm successful now. So that's
absolutely. We went through it ourselves, right? We went through it ourselves, right? When we had leaders and we were like, why are we doing this? You know, so on and so forth, right? And then, but in our time, is like we just execute, right? It's like, you know, be on time, be in the right uniform, and do what you're told. Got it.
Right place, right time, right uniform. That's all we need.
Yeah. You know, and that was something that we were taught, right, from the beginning, and so, you know, we will ask ourselves, like, and then the aha moment when aha moment comes out, oh, that's why my platoon sergeant wanted me to do this. Oh, that's why my squad leader, so on and so forth. It's different now. Now we have to tell them the why up front, right? Different generation. We have a generation that has technology that they get the answers real fast. They want the answers fast. They want to know the why we're doing X, Y. It doesn't make sense, right? So we have to take that time to explain the bigger picture of things, and tell them there's always a meaning for what we're doing. So
back in the day, we couldn't do that. They just executed back in the day. Now it's a little different.
Yeah, you didn't execute. You know, you're doing a little bit more flutter kicks, some push-ups, you know, just for asking the question, right? That's what we go to basic training at that time, right? You're scared to ask the question because you're gonna get yelled at, right? And if you ask the question, you're gonna get yelled at, right? So it's like, damn if you do, damn if you don't. It's like,
no.
Exactly.
Yeah.
What you got next, Jay?
Well, can you discuss some of the well, you did it already, but like the importance of continuous training, professional development in the Army, based on your your experience?
So, you know, the Army is a learning environment. It's a learning organization, right? It's again, what I said, if you're not learning, you're not growing. In every position that the Army had put me in, I'm learning. It's always attack at a humble state of learning the organization, the task, how we do things. Because nobody taught you how to be a first sergeant, right? You're emulating. Nobody taught you how to be a platoon sergeant. You're emulating what you saw, right? And sometimes what you saw wasn't really the right answer, right? Or you didn't know the why. You didn't know the why things were happening. So that's why I always say you're always learning. You always have to be adaptable to learn new methods, learn the why, and then execute the task. So every organization I go, I always try to learn the most I know about that organization. What's its purpose? What's its purpose? What they do, and then know the people. And knowing your people is the main. If you don't know your people, if you know your people, you know how to utilize them and get the best out of them for your organization, right? So you have to have the mindset of not always having you're not always the smartest person in the room, right? So somebody else can do it better or have a better course of action and be receptive of it. And I took that every time. My PCS, when I'm looking back, PCS 9 times in the Army, and every PCS I've done, I always had a good learning, positive experience. Either had a good mentor in that organization. I always ask, what did I get out of this PCS move? What did I get out of it? And 99% of the time was somebody that mentored me or took me under their shoulder, a good relationship with a friend, or learning new techniques and new ways of doing things from a different lens that I wouldn't have the privilege of learning if I wasn't there. So yeah, as a leader, as a soldier, you have to be receptive of learning new ways of doing things, and as the world evolves, technology and tactics evolves also, and even the personal side, how to deal with people, on the emotional side and emotional intelligence side, is learning your own self of your own flaws and your own emotional intelligence, and why you're reacting to certain events, right? And why people are reacting to certain events. So we're learning every day.
That's right.
And if you're not receptive of learning, you're not gonna move forward, if that makes any sense.
That's right. That great sense. And how many combat tours you been on?
So unfortunately, I had 3. I have 3 combat tours. 2 to Iraq. One for the initial invasion in 2003. Young E5, only been in the Army maybe like 3 years. Taking a squad of 16 at that time. It was a very patriotic event, but also a very emotional, significant event, right, in life, right? It's like when you have 16 soldiers under your care in combat. It's a huge learning curve. It's a huge learning curve. Huge. Then I went for the surge in 07, 08. I was part of the surge. I think one of the most difficult times in my deployment was during the surge. And then I went to Afghanistan in 08, 09, no, 09, 010, 09, 2010. I served in Afghanistan. Another environment, different way of doing logistics. There's more, sling load operations and convoy operations, and looking at the terrain, how we're going to get things to point A to point B, and having the resources that I never thought I would have. I never thought I would have 13 Foxes in my platoon. I had Mortarmans in my platoon, and I was like, wait, when they assigned that to my platoon, Mortarmans and 13 Foxes, I was like, hold up, where are we going? Why do I need this? It was pretty cool, but it was like, okay, different environment, right? And different capabilities.
Can you discuss some of the challenges you had during the surge?
Well, during the surge, in that time, the U.S. we were losing about 100 U.S. soldiers about a month on a monthly basis, right? The challenges that was attending all those memorial services, right? It's like every week we had like a memorial service, and then we're back on the road, we're back on mission, right? The challenges were keeping my soldiers focused on the mission, focused on taking care of each other, training, doing the right thing, so we could be successful on the road. But also, that mental side, right? That mental sit down and let's take a pause. Let's talk about things, right? Everybody was going through challenges, including myself. When we talk about, hey, I'm in a memorial service where they're like 15, 30 minutes. Okay, now, hey, what's our next task, right? Mm-hmm. It's like the army song, right? The army keeps rolling along, right? We have to keep on moving forward because the train doesn't stop, right? And for us to go home, we got to keep on with that tough mindset to keep on moving. So that was very challenging for me. That time frame is it came to a point that I didn't want to make friends with nobody, right? It's because I didn't want to see him in a memorial service and being a part of the memorial service. And that was probably also too in the 03 section 2. That was one, I think the challenge portion is having a conversation with a buddy one day, and the next day, you're hearing that there's a memorial service for that individual. So that was I would say the most challenging. The mission, the task, and mission. Hey, we could do it. We got it, right? But it's the human factor, emotional factor that was I think the most challenging in combat, right? And in any war, in combat period, is losing a battle buddy, losing a friend, even losing an acquaintance that you had just a conversation about whatever, and then next thing you know, that individual is not there. So keeping my soldiers focused on the mission, talking to them consistently about about life, about family, and keeping them optimistic and positive, and training, and be able to bring them home. That's when I was able to rest.
Right.
When landed U.S. soil, that everybody came back. That was under my care was the biggest gift that God ever gave me. So I think that was shaping that out was my biggest challenge.
Well, I definitely thank you for your service, brother. And so many times,
Thank
man.
you.
Even when I was, I can totally relate to what you're saying, but it always reminds me that I wasn't the only one going through it. I wasn't the only one that was had the memories of others on my mind, fear on my mind. Only thing I knew is I had to be more courageous for my guys. Because if I felt it, I knew they felt it. So
yeah, it's like we say false motivation, right?
That's
so
right.
It's like, hey, how do I disguise my fear, right? But fear is a good thing. I used it as as a paratrooper, right? They say, hey, every paratrooper, if you're not scared of bullshit, I'm sorry, they're lying to themselves, right?
That's right.
they're lying to themselves because it's not normal to jump out of the aircraft, right? Fully, fine aircraft, but that's the challenge, is holding your emotions, that having that positive attitude, and being optimistic. Everything's gonna be okay. Hey, that was a challenge. It's
right.
Who are you gonna talk to, right? It's like had a one of my mentors, brother of mine, Sergeant Major retired football. One time, we talk about, hey, why are we doing this, right? And everything that came out is about the paratroopers. We're paratroopers. At one time I was so sick about paratroopers. I'm like, yeah, I get it, we're paratroopers. However, there has to be another way of doing it. who's gonna talk to me? You know what I'm saying? Who's gonna consult me? You know, it's like, because the only thing coming out of your mouth is paratrooper. I don't, you know. Yeah, it was one of those funny moments I had. One of those moments I had with him. It was funny. I can recall, you know, recapping those times.
So so you go from 3 deployments, and you're dealing with the soldiers, their families, and you're grabbing up yourself out of bootstraps, and you're still going. You also have a humanitarian deployment, correct?
Yes. So how that we were supposed to go. That was in 2005, 05, right?
Mm-hmm.
05, yeah, that was in 05, right? So I was in Delta Company. We were supposed to go to JRTC. We were supposed to go to Fort Polk at that time. And then Hurricane Katrina. Yeah, Hurricane Katrina. It was coming down. It was going to hit Louisiana, and we were getting news. And then for a whole week, we were getting alerted, right? We were getting alerted. We had to come and hold up, 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning with all our stuff. And hey, we're going to go. Not going to go. We're going to go. We're not going to go. So we convoyed down. We got the actual one of the alerts. It was a go to Katrina, and I was a platoon sergeant at that time, and we convoyed down to Louisiana, New Orleans, to help support with the humanitarian crisis and help the folks down in Louisiana. I remember that convoy, man. I don't know how long. It took days to get down there, right? It was so funny that we had equipment, getting towed and whatnot, right? And so on and so forth. Like, we're gonna get there. We're eventually gonna get there, right? And just being in New Orleans, we were in the airport in New Orleans at the initial time. But it was a great event. A great event is to be able to support our. I was happy we weren't going to JRTC. I was like, yeah, but I was more happy that I could help people in need. People that were really part of helping those folks was a great accomplishment, and one of my greatest I want to say success, but things that I was prideful for, that I was able to be, instead of going into the JRTC in the swamps or whatever, I'm really taking care of our folks, right? Our U.S. citizens, our folks, and we're helping them and doing our logistical support and helping our U.S. citizens was very impactful for me. I really enjoyed the humanitarian mission. It was because I was helping people, and end of the day, that's what we do as logisticians, right? We support the warfighter in combat, and then in our nation, we support them in time of crisis and need. So that's what I like about support, helping others.
Man, 100%. Now, kind of caveat off that, you got a bunch of extensive support roles, particularly within the airborne units. How do you think important support roles are in the military? How does that play?
It's huge. It's the main factor. You ain't gonna survive. You ain't gonna survive no combat operation without support, right? Without support, you will not.
Yeah. People don't realize.
You can see it. I mean, you can just recently, like let's say a year ago, right? When Russia, one of the biggest country, of when we talk about, hand in hand with the U.S. capabilities, right, going into Ukraine, they lack support. They lack the ability to support their tanks, their fuel, and their water, and they got crushed. They couldn't get into Kyiv, right? They didn't have the logistical planning. They lacked logistical planning. They lacked logistical support. And they showed they couldn't meet their objective that they thought they were going to take in a few days. And if Ukraine had the capabilities of greater capabilities at the time, they would have been all destroyed in one day. But nothing happens without support, and period. You know, we got war fighters, and then we got support, right? The warfighter can't be successful without support. It can't survive. They're going to run out of bullets, right, at one point, right? How they're going to get it? They're going to run out of water.
Yeah, how are they going to get
it? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Now you grew up. Well, I wouldn't say you grew up, but you started your military career off in Delta Company, and you know we've had a bunch of Delta Company vets on the show, and they kind of highlight of what kind of and Lieutenant Colonel Sanford said it best. Delta Company was a leadership clinic. So the type of leadership we had in Delta Company was very paramount. And I kind of want to highlight a story of how our leadership was in Delta Company. And when we were talking about the initial push into Iraq, when you were there with Sergeant Philpo, who was the platoon sergeant, and it was you, and what was the other guys? We had Sergeant Kane, and who else?
Sergeant Thompson, and it was Sergeant Thompson, Sergeant Kane, and myself.
Yeah. So the type of leadership you guys developed from Delta Company, afterwards, Sergeant Philpo put you guys in for Bronze Stars. And you know the controversy around getting a Bronze Star as far as being the E5. They're like, you know, we don't want to give them. But Sergeant Philpo said, you know what? Hey, these guys deserve Bronze Stars because they're a heck of leaders. They're really good leaders. So I'm going to give my Bronze Star to Sergeant Rodriguez. So now we need 2 more to give out. How do we make this happen? So I kind of wanted you to highlight that story just because it shows the type of leadership that we come from.
Yeah, no, you're definitely right. You know, it was a leadership clinic. You know, Delta Company had phenomenal leaders all across the board. Like I mentioned before, from the E5 to the first sergeant, and the commander. I can't take away from the company commanders at that time. Also, they were all phenomenal. You know, where we lacked in equipment, where we lacked in technology at that time, we had discipline. We were well trained. We were well disciplined, right? We executed, and because we had that mentality of being, you know, nobody can outdo us, right? We were always competing with each other. It helped us survive combat, right? So Philpo, so we were attached to the 407 FSB at that time, 2nd Brigade 325, and we did the initial entry in Iraq. We spent 13, 14 months for that deployment. But during that deployment, you know, I had 16 soldiers under me at that time. You know, wow. Thompson, more or less, we all had about, you know, no less than 14 folks in each squad during that time. And doing the initial entry that we didn't know where we were going. We didn't, you know, most everything was hand and arm signals. You know, when you had one ASIP rating for every maybe 6 or 7 trucks, right? You know, when we talk about equipment at that time, right?
Yeah.
But our training, our discipline, you know, the mentality of being a paratrooper, you know, helped us endure the stress, the long hours, late nights, night missions. We had the basic, you know, we had smart arm fires, IEDs, you know, shoot, move, communicate, medicate. We had that discipline that we were able to execute with in a heartbeat, right? It was like second nature, and be able to survive that, right? Especially 6 months after the initial, when everything started going a little crazy in the Baghdad area and whatnot, and Fallujah. Things were going, you know, crazy and not, but we were able to sustain and take care of our soldiers. And Philpo being our platoon sergeant, right? Everybody's learning right?
Mm-hmm.
And again, you know, we don't have all the answers, but we're gonna make it happen, right? And we're gonna put our heads together and we're gonna make it happen. And being a leader, he knew that he was our mentor, our guide, our platoon sergeant, but also, you know, he understood what we brought to the table, and he relied on us to ensure, he trusted in us that we were going to handle our business and our mission, right? That he knew whatever he tells us to do, whatever guidance he gave us, we were going to do it, or even do it even better, right? Mm-hmm. And the best accomplishment was bringing everybody back home, you know, with all their limbs, even though we you know, things happen. I'm saying because people couldn't do that, they're less of a leader or not, but we were able to accomplish that goal of bringing everybody back, and not shy away from any mission. Every mission that we did, we were given. Obviously, we had to obey orders, but we weren't shying away because it was dangerous or whatnot. Every mission is dangerous, but he understood that. And when it was time for the awards, the you know, end of tour awards and whatnot, you're right. He did put in for bronze stars for us 3 E5s. And awards is based on responsibilities, right? It's the level of responsibility for each pay grade, and the action that you have done during that time period for the award. So yes, for E5 to receive a bronze star in 03 and whatnot was kind of, you know, especially in the support organization, very unheard of, right? Very, very unheard of. But he fought all the way to the top to tell our story, what we have done, what we have accomplished, you know, and just being, you know, in the environment that we were, with the experience, with the level of experience that we had, but we were able to fulfill the mission, to accomplish the mission, every mission that they gave us. And he wasn't taking no for an answer. Awesome. He didn't care. He valued our efforts. He valued our achievements, and he valued that we brought everybody home successfully and you know, to their families. So he wasn't taking no. He wasn't taking no for an answer. He didn't care. He said if he had to go talk to Division CG, he wanted an open door policy with that Division CG. He didn't back down. And again, testament of leaders fighting for their folks, ensuring that their folks get their, you know, what is due to them, or if it didn't accomplish, we respected him for, you know, taking the fight to the fight. And when I say that, it's just, you know, be able to articulate what we were able to accomplish. And that was the type of leader he was. He was unselfish. He was a very unselfish guy. He gave flowers where people, you know, deserve the flowers, and he gave punishment where the people deserve punishment. Right? It's black and white. It's
yeah, absolutely. There's no
gray. There was no gray with him, and there was really no gray with any leader in Delta Company. To tell you the truth, they were very direct, and you take it, you thrive on it, or you sink, swim or sink. Right? But they hardened us. That leadership style of that organization hardened us for endure those times that we endured. And I'm very grateful for that. So my leadership really started in that foundation of Delta Company. Do I use that foundation now? Sometimes, right? But again, like I said, the Army changes with time, and you have to adapt to those changes, and you have to adapt to communicate, you know, those changes for the time, and people learn differently. So the way I learn is not going to be the same way a new trainee, a new soldier comes in the Army today. They learn totally different, and I have to understand that their environment, and then how can I teach them and articulate to them the importance of why we do things. Back then is do what you're told, you know. and if you don't do what you're told, you're gonna die, right? Or you're gonna get injured, right? There's consequences for actions that you don't take. yeah, he was a straight shooter, and yeah, it was kind of unheard of, right? Like we had 3 E5 receiving Bronze Stars, right? And I remember there was the battalion commander that gave me that Bronze Star. When he pinned that Bronze Star on me, he said you need to be very grateful, right? like didn't come easy, right? So basically, you know, highlighting that, you know, my platoon sergeant at that time, he put a great fight in, and he achieved what he wanted to achieve.
That's awesome, man.
It is. So over the years, who were your biggest mentors and influences in the Army?
Man, you know, I'll be lying to you if I could pick one. It's so many people have poured into me. I mentioned earlier, being PCS 9 times and being surrounded by different leaders and different levels. You know, I've been mentored, good, better, and different from a lot of people, right? You know, I go back from my first sergeant, Bernie, and Captain Miko. They were the command team, and how they took care of me, how they brought me in the organization, and showed me that they cared. Because they, tell you the truth, you know, from 82nd reception to the company, I wouldn't call it hazing, but it was you know, introduced me to the culture of the division way, right? That of the discipline, standard and discipline period, right? That I was in formation at 5:30 in the morning. I was outside. I didn't want to be late. They told me I gotta be, you know, at 6:15 at this location. I was there like 5:45, 5:30, 5:45. I was there, and I was like, nah, I ain't the one. I'm gonna be late, and you know, but. You know, all the platoon sergeants, even the platoon sergeant for second platoon, they like Maloney. Remember Maloney? I don't know if you remember Maloney, but you know, we talk about Smalls, Bernard Smalls, first sergeant, command sergeant retired Bernard Smalls. I just talked to him about maybe 3 weeks ago. I was able to see him and talk to him, and he gave me some words of wisdom of being a sergeant major, you know, and he still mentors me to today. Man, it's a whole bunch. Philpo, obviously, you know, Portis. You guys remember Portis? Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I talked to him. You know, I worked for Portis. Sergeant Major retired Portis. I talked to him, and he was from a different platoon, right? He was from a different platoon and whatnot. But I was able to work for him. He was my first sergeant in Afghanistan at one period of time. You know, when you talk about mentors, it's a whole bunch, right? I don't want to just name one individual or 2 individuals, because what does it say? It takes a family to raise a child, per se, right? So have from officers, from lieutenant colonels, from command sergeant majors to sergeants. You know, I think in life, besides the military, is Sergeant First Class Carreras, retired Sergeant Class. Well, we retired Carreras, but he was my first. Actually, he was one of my team leaders at the time when I was a private PFC from Puerto Rico. He came from Korea. He walked down the motor pool. He saw me in the motor pool. He asked me a few questions, and then next thing you know, I directed him where he needed to go. Then I found out he was my team leader, and we became best friends. We became like, he's my brother, right? And it's funny that he was an E5 and I was able to get promoted to E6 before him. And then I say, hey man, remember all those smoke that you used to give me? Hey, wait till we link up again. You're gonna get smoked. You're gonna pay time, right? So yeah. So long story short, you know, we became brothers. I married his wife. Cousin, we get bonded. I was now I'm integrated in the family, and unfortunately, he passed away last year after think 5 or 6 years after he retired out the Army, he just had a heart attack and passed away young. He was 48 years old. Couldn't live the next chapter of his life. But, you know, when we talk about life, learning, he taught me a lot about life, how to be the challenges of life, period, and living. And that was a great thing about Delta Company too, is a lot of leadership is not based on what you learn from the job, is what you learn of life. A lot of mentors I got with mentors were friends of mine that talked about life, the challenges that we get in the day to day, and get through things. So those were I think the best mentors were the overall, professionally, and then on the personal side, that we could separate personal and professionally. And that one thing, Delta Company had a lot of people that could draw the line of, okay, hey, professionally, this is what you need to execute. On the personal side, hey, you know, X, Y, and Z. And understanding that, hey, work is work, and your personal chapter, that's your personal chapter, and we can there's no gray line, if that makes any sense. But yeah, there's a whole ton of mentors, you know. I won't do it justice if I start naming names and miss somebody out, because a lot of people had invested in me based on conversations, based on hitting me across the head. Hey, you need to do this. You need to do this. But I take from a plethora of people that had invested in me where I'm at today. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, it does. So 25 years in, what would you give the younger self advice before you came into the military? If you could tell yourself something 25 years ago,
say again?
What would be the advice you would give yourself if you could give yourself advice 25 years ago before you came in? What you know now?
What I know now, I would say, you know, take advantage of education early on in your career, right?
Oh, yeah.
When you're private at E4, right? Then that's why I tell my new soldiers, right? Is like, hey, the hardest thing you're gonna do in the Army is your self-development, right? You start early now, that you're taking care of yourself, right? You're responsible for you, right? For you and whatever task you've been given. However, if you invest in yourself now, going to college, right? So when you become an E5, E6, you got that out of the way, that chapter out of the way. Now, because when you become a sergeant and stuff, now you're responsible for people, right? Now you got to put yourself back and invest in your folks that you're responsible for. So it's going to take more time away from you from your self-development. So I really tell these E2s, the E1s, the E3s that come in and like, go to college, hit it now. The hardest part is starting. Go after it. Everything else will come and take your time with everything else, right? But knock out your college education, and then everything else with your career will come in due time, right? You'll learn every step. Don't rush into things. Don't rush into things because you need that experience. And with experience comes knowledge, right? And character, knowledge and character, because you built your character based on experience and the environment that you're in. So we call them that. Even though when I started going to college early on, we were always competing, right? And then the war came on, and you know, one thing led to the other, so it becomes more difficult to. It's achievable. I'm not saying it's not achievable, but it just takes more of your time of getting after that tool, or that asset of getting that education. So that's the main thing I tell the soldiers. They, you know, hey, be on time, be in the right uniform, do what you're told, right? But then self-development, hit your self-development, get yourself prepared for the afterlife. If you want to make a decision after the Army, do something different, that you're well prepared to endure the civilian life You don't have to do 20 years, as long as you're well prepared, that you have a plan, build that plan now. So you can have options. And when it's time, when you decide you want to re-enlist or continue on, at least, you have options and doors can be open for you.
So as over your 25 years, you've gone all the way up. Now you're a Sergeant Major. You're a Sergeant Major at Advanced Individual Training there at Fort Leonard Wood. What's next for Sergeant Major Rodriguez? For in the military and your personal life, do you have some goals?
So I take every assignment one day at a time, right? Goals. So my goal is to be successful, right? At the end of the day, is to be successful in whatever assignment I'm given. So I don't know if I do 30, but most likely my goal is to do 30 years. I love the Army. I love what I do. I love logistics. I love supporting the warfighter. I love at the beginning of my career, I was more operational. Then when I became a Sergeant Major, the Army put me in a strategic organization. So I started learning the big picture of things, of logistics. Well, I started as an E8, but however, starting the strategic side of logistics. Then I'm at the training, the institutional side of training. But I love logistics overall. If I can learn more and hone my craft more in the low decision side, maybe work for the Army after my 30 years on the civilian sector and supporting the warfighter and the strategic side. I love the planning. I love seeing the execution of things, how everything comes together, and I like support. At the end of the day, I love serving others and making them successful in whatever task that they have, and knowing that I had maybe a small part of it, but for me it was a huge part. And saying, yeah, I was part of that planning concept, or I helped shape that mission set or whatnot. That fulfills me, and supporting others it fulfills me, and either on the personal side or on the strategic side or operational side. It's maybe after 30 years in the Army, I'll go work as a GS somewhere, and suit and tie, and help contribute to our war fighters and our strategic planning.
Absolutely.
All right. So, what's one book you believe that every soldier should read? If you would recommend the book.
Start with The Why by Simon Sinek, right? We talk about the why, right? Where is understanding, what drives people, what motivates folks, why we do things, is in telling that story of first understanding the why, and knowing when I say this as a leader is knowing, again, I say, what motivates folks, what motivates you, right? Like I try to learn, like, hey, what team do you like? What sports? Let's say Sports Center. Maybe I don't like sports, but I have to look at Sports Center because I know you like the Dallas Cowboys, or basketball when you have the playoffs that's going on right now, right? But I know you're a big basketball fan and whatnot, and you know how we greet each other every day. Hey, how you doing? And whatnot. Right? So I say, hey, how you doing? How your day going? I can say, hey, did you see the basketball game the other day, right? Mm-hmm. So now, because I know you're a Boston Celtic fan, or a Dallas Maverick fan, or whatever, maybe that's gonna get a smile on your face, right? I'm starting a conversation with a positive note, right? I call it coins. I put coins in my pocket, and for each person I have a coin, and I try to figure out what drives them, right? What motivates them, what they're interested in. It's knowing your people, and then if you can know your people and understand how to know your people, then now you could transition to, hey, why do you do things? What's the purpose of Amazon? what does Amazon really do? What's the end state of Amazon? What do they contribute, right? Or why are we doing X, Y, and Z? What's the big picture of this? And you understand it and be able to highlight that to your subordinates and your folks, and give it a positive way to understand that, hey, how will they be motivated to execute this? It's I think it's a great way to, one, know your people, how to accomplish the mission better, and knowing that they can probably do it better than how you directed or your intent was. Sometimes Senate give you a big perspective, general perspective of that. I love that book. There's another one I would say. I learned this when I was in third group. I had a good mentor there, Chuy Almonte. He was my first sergeant in HAC, Third Special Forces Group at that time. The Men, the Mission, and Myself is by Pete Blatter, I believe is his name. Is a special operation Delta Force operator that tells his story about when he joined Delta Force and all his missions that he accomplished, and the training he did with his men to accomplish those missions, the investment that he did in his men, in the training and the preparation, and then how they executed the mission. But end of the day, the book basically tells you that you have to rely on the person on the ground, right? You have to trust in that person on the ground that he's feeding you the information that you need to execute the task. So it's about trust, right? Trust in the person on the ground. When we talk about mission command, right? The Army is big on mission command. It's trusting those individuals to meet your intent, your guidance, and they're going to do it. They're going to execute that. But is that as an operator him as an operator and as a leader overall, is you got to trust in that person that's doing. You can't, if you're leading behind a monitor or whatnot, and the person on the ground is telling you, this is the way you have to do it, X, Y, and Z. You got to trust in that, even though maybe it's not doctrine, but you got to trust in that individual that's in the fight, give him what he needs, approve what he needs, and trust that it's going to happen successfully. It's a great book. It's a great read. The Men, the Mission, and Myself. It's a great. It keeps you in there. But what I took about that one is, I gotta trust more in I gotta trust more in my folks that is doing the labor, is doing the work, is in the grind, and take their input. And maybe it don't sound solid for you at that time because you're not there, but for them it's real, right? For them it's real. They're executing it, right? It's just being more holistically understanding your environment and trusting your folks that you trained and you trust to accomplish the mission.
Okay. So I know you have been through a lot of stressful environments. I'll say that. So now, how do you unwind and relax after a particular rough day?
So on the garrison side, I always try to find a house that's about 40 minutes, roughly 45 minutes away from my work, right? So I take that long drive, that 45 minutes before I go home. I take that drive home just to unwind, right? I just unwind. I call my mom. My mom, she lives by herself, so I check up on her every day, right? Every other day, but sometimes I use that time to make those phone calls to check up on folks, just to think about something outside of work, right? Outside of work, just think about my problems can be as insignificant right now. Let me see how my folks are doing, how my friends are doing, changing my mindset of not thinking about my personal problems or work problems or whatnot before I get home. So when I get home we're not talking about work, it's all about the family, how they're doing. And so So it takes that about that time, 45 minutes. I always try to do that long ride just to decompress, right? And sometimes if things are pretty rough for me, I take those long runs, right? I'll go on long runs and do my meditating by running, right? I wasn't really a big runner. I was, but I wasn't. If that makes any sense. I mean, because we didn't have GPS time, GPS watches at that time, right? If you're A group, it was just pew, pew, right? If you're in B group, C group, you get smoked, right? To catch up. But when you're A group, you didn't know. You were just thinking there was a fire behind you, right? That you just following. Right. But I use running as one of my tools to wind down, to meditate when I'm having a rough time, whatever. I just go for a 5 or 10 mile run just to, get my thoughts to myself, to level my level of anxiety or stress, if that makes any sense. Mm-hmm. It's like when you do PT, right? You don't want to do it. You don't want to do it. You don't feel this morning is cold, or blah blah blah. But after you do it, it's like rewarding, right? Man, I'm glad I did it. I'm glad I accomplished X, Y, and Z. So when I do those type of events, for me, it's like, okay, I was able to, what did I get out of this? What I accomplished, and it makes me feel better.
Yeah, that's understandable. It gives you an idea that you still can overcome that stressful situation as well after you just finish that run too.
Yeah. It's accomplishing something, right? Is to be able to accomplish, you accomplish something that maybe was hard, right? Or just be able to do something positive, for yourself, right? And take a negative, make it to a positive, right? And even with the simple things. So that's how I cope with things, and failure is learning. I tell myself when I didn't accomplish something, or something didn't come out right how I wanted, I say, man, if I have to learn something out of this negative, and I always relate to a baby, right? A baby doesn't know how to walk, it crawls first, right? And it attempts to walk and it falls, but it come back up, it falls back, and it's until they accomplish it, right? So yeah, it's I have to find something that I can accomplish or do when things get rough, for myself, right? For myself. And it could be in a lot of ways, but I use running as one of my mental stress relaxer, if that makes any sense.
So you kind of learned to enjoy running rather than feeling forced to do it.
Correct. Right? Yeah. Correct. Yeah. Right. That is correct. Right. When you put the discipline side, hey, I gotta do it, right? Because it's part of my job, right? It's part of my job to be a portion of being physically fit, right? Portion of the physical fitness side, the cardio side. That's the discipline part, right? But when you enjoy doing it, right? You enjoy doing it for self, right? And then it becomes much easier. So yeah. I use that, yeah. And then I like to. I'm not a good golfer, but I like to golf and hit the pavement. My stressors on a ball, but but that's not every day though.
Well, do you got anything in closing that you want to leave for the people, Sergeant Major?
No, in closing, I just want to say thank you for inviting me. Thank you for, I guess to tell my little story of who I am and what I accomplished, and answering questions that you want to know about me. But in closing, hey, I really appreciate you guys. Appreciate you guys, what you're doing for the vets and what you've done for serving our nation too. Without our veterans, I wouldn't be here today, right? It takes everyone to accomplish, everybody's contributed to the success of where our nation is at today. And I want to thank you first of all on that. and continue on driving and telling the story of our vets, right? And promoting and helping take care of our vets. And one thing I just want to say is the Army is a great organization. I made great friends, great family members. I consider my friends family. It's one of those organizations that, they can't relate to the civilization, can't relate to what we went through, what the hardship that we went through, the accomplishments that we went through, right? And that's what makes us unique as veterans. I'm currently active, soon to be veteran in a few years, shortly. But we have our own story, right? And we can relate to each other, and we have each other and one thing is to reach out to other vets and to reach out to people that are in that we're going through the same thing, right? And if we don't communicate it, you want to know that we share the same, difficulties or challenges, right? That's one thing I learned about the Sergeant Major Academy. When I was in the Sergeant Major Academy, we had our CMF, we had a little lunch, we had a little dinner, right? And I was struggling. I'll tell you that I was struggling with those papers, right? Writing those papers and understanding X, Y, and Z. I was struggling, but I was holding that in, right? And so we had a dinner. Our CMF guys, all the 88 Zulus at that time, were sitting down in dinner, and we're talking about our classes, right? We're talking about, hey, this paper and that paper. And it was pretty cool to see that I wasn't the only one that was having some challenges. It was like, okay, I'm not the only one, right? and then bouncing off ideas with each other, bouncing off ideas with each other. How you do that? How you cope with this? Paid great dividends for myself emotionally, right? Emotionally, in the sense like, hey, okay, I'm not the only one struggling with X, Y, and Z. There's other people in the same boat, or maybe worse, right? How can I help them? Maybe I can ask them some questions, how they do things, and maybe learn from them, how they cope with X, Y, and Z. And that's all about communication, right? It's all about communication. You guys are doing a great thing of, reaching out, having a conversation with folks. And that's what we have to do as veterans, as soldiers, that we know that we can relate to each other of what we've been through and what people go through. And if you could give that sound advice and or that ear, sometimes people just need an ear, just somebody to talk to and say, hey, I'm going to talk to you because I know you understand me. You're not going to judge me. And you understand what I'm going through. And I just want you to listen. Right. And that's huge. That's huge, because talking to somebody that doesn't know or can't relate to what you've been through, it's kind of hard to open up to that individual, right? They could have all the certificates on the wall, right? That they're the best psychiatrist or whatever, right? But I think one of the best therapy is just talking with somebody that can relate and we can bounce back ideas and conversation with each other, and just knowing that you're not alone. Just letting people know, hey, you're not alone. To reach out, and I think that's one message I want to tell one veteran to the other veteran, to one soldier to another soldier, is to be open to helping others and just be an ear. Sometimes somebody just needs to, especially when they're having a rough time, right? And when they're having a rough time, you have to know the why. Going back to the why, what's causing that reaction, right? When we talk about emotional intelligence, right, is what's causing this person to react this way. There's something underlining that's bothering this individual, and you have to find a way of how to help that individual open up, that you can help that individual see things from a different perspective and how to handle themselves. And catching that early on we could prevent a lot of, one of the big things in the Army is suicide, right? Is handling those coping mechanisms, and when you see somebody struggling, don't just pass them up and keep them struggling, being open enough to say, hey man, I'm here for you. I'm here for you. I'm here for you. I'm here to listen. let's have some lunch or whatnot, and just be open up to figure out, peel the onion, why this individual is reacting a certain way, and be able to provide that individual some help before they make an unfortunate decision that we don't want to happen. So yeah, that's one thing I want to take away. One thing I want to send the messages to everyone out there, that's seeing this is, be mindful of your surroundings, be mindful of your people, and be judgmental, but try to understand what's causing certain type of reactions, and try to open up to them, hone up to them, offer them your ear, offer them some, just be a good listener. Sometimes people just want to vent. They just want to vomit out whatever this is out, but nobody wants to hear it, right? But they just want to be heard, and understanding that, hey, that person needs some more professional help, whatever, in the system, and that's just leader engagement, just being engaged, right? Being a leader doesn't start off at 1700, 1800. You're a leader 24/7, and that's answering that phone call when somebody needs some help, or you understand that some person needs some help, and you engaging in them, and have picking up the coins. What motivates them? Understand what motivates them to open that conversation up, so they can open up to you, and we could prevent people having mishaps.
Yeah, well, that's one of the biggest reasons we started this, is because one thing about veterans, we like to talk. We like to sit here. We like to converse with other veterans, and it's the type of therapy, like you were saying, just to talk with somebody else that's walked the path that you've walked. So that's one of the biggest things that we're trying to do and help with veterans, just to talk with people, and people like listening and like talking. Right. So that's the biggest thing we wanted to bring to veterans, because as veterans, we're all we got. Veterans support veterans. That's the biggest thing we wanted to do. So we really appreciate you coming on here and telling your story, and maybe you could motivate, that next individual. It's like, hey, whatever Sergeant Major Rodriguez said, that really resonated with me, and I'm going to implement that in my leadership style. So.
And that's another reason why we do it, Sergeant Major, is to really have people on like you. I really want to say, again, thank you for your service. And second, I always like to say, one of my sayings is, men should become mentors. Mm-hmm. And when you make your exit into a veteran, you're still going to be that mentor. You won't be able to put it behind you. You still got all that leadership skills, style. You're still going to find a way how to be all you can be. And I just wanted to highlight you, because I'm thankful for you coming on the show, because of your leadership and because of the demand that you are. So I'm thankful that you came on the show. I'm thankful you were able to answer our questions, and we was able to highlight you today on the show. And I appreciate you, Sergeant Major.
Well, thank you. Again, I appreciate your invite. Whatever words wisdom I could pour out. I'm here 24/7. Whenever you need, again, you need an ear, you need to talk, have a conversation. You got my number. Give me a call. We'll sit down, chit chat. But I'm very grateful for what you guys do. Again, I can't highlight enough what you guys doing a positive thing. Continue on what you're doing, and continue inspiring others to help each other, because it's all we have, right? We have each other. We bled, we sweat, we cried, we done everything together. There's no shame to talk truth, power the truth, right? And help each other out, and give tools to others to help, continue on that path of helping others, and giving them the tools to to help our own battle buddies, end of the day.
Awesome. All right. Thanks a lot. And we're gonna go ahead and end the segment here. You have a blessed one, Sergeant Major, and we'll see you on the
All right.
on the next one.
All right, so
On the flip side.
Yes,
All right,
sir.
you take care.
All right,
Peace.
bye.